our celebrity guest tonight. I mean, people rave about this gentleman. And if I read his entire bio, we might be here all night. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. Let's say our celebrity guest tonight has been successful in many spaces. IT off the charts. He's been in all aspects of real estate, single family, commercial, all kind of different commercial deals. He's bought and sold over 100 properties, is a huge supporter and contributor to the multifamily Freedom Chasers community. So y'all, without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Sean Thompson.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
We love you, Sean. Let me get you the intro music here.
Yeah. All I do is win, win, win.
Yes, we got to fit that in, Sean, because you're a winner. We got winners all here in the Zoom tonight, and we're really glad to have you on as our special guest. How are you this evening, sir?
Very good, very good. Thank you. I love to see everybody's faces on here. I know a lot of these people, so it's very nice to get to see everybody on here.
Definitely, and that's something special. I mean, you know, Sean, he knows, like as he just mentioned, he knows several of you guys here, which is outstanding because that is an indication of the support that he's given the MFC community throughout the years. Sean, I mean, I've heard your name floating around out there for at least over a year or two, something like that. So that means a lot to me as one of the community founders, and I know you've helped a lot of people in this community. So thank you so much for your contribution for a long time since the MFC community has been around.
It's been my pleasure. I've gotten to be friends with a lot of the folks that are on here. Gotten to be friends with Jerry Miles and his lovely wife and his family. And of course, I'm doing a business deal with Ed and Kevin, and I know Peter, and there's just so many faces on here that I've either done business with or hope to do business with someday. So this space is full of really good people.
Yes, sir. I agree. Well, Sean, let's go ahead and jump into it. I want to get into your backstory before you get into the meat and potatoes of what I really want to talk about, because as you know, everybody has their own journey of how they ended up where they are. So I'd like to understand, I personally don't know that much about you. I mean, several people have just commented that you're exceptional, you know, but I don't know much about your backstory. So I think maybe that's a good place to start. I'd like to understand, before you got into the whole real estate world, what were you doing?
Well, I've been in IT. I've had a couple different IT businesses for, I started on my own self-employed in 2004. So I've been in business a little over 20 years at this point, self-employed.
Okay, outstanding. So you were in the IT business. Now, how did the real estate space get on your radar originally?
Well, I've always had a passion for real estate. And one of the things I grew up, and my parents didn't have a lot of money. They pretty much lived hand to mouth. And I just knew I didn't want to be like them. And not that they weren't good parents. They just didn't do a very good job of managing money. And so I got around people who had money. And one of the things that I learned was you needed multiple streams of income. And if you had multiple streams of income that people couldn't cut off, then you could control your own destiny. Because if you work a single job at any point in time, if you did something to make your boss mad, he can let you go, right? So it's better to have multiple streams of income. Well, what's better than multiple streams of income than having some houses? Because the next thing I learned is you want to be able to make money while you sleep. And so if you had some houses out there, and I started out with single family houses, and my whole thing was just get a house, get it fixed up, get somebody else in there, let them pay for the mortgage, and then build up enough money and then go do it again. So I started with the single family houses thinking that, I would get rich or be able to retire from single family houses. And little did I know that I found out later on, you can't really make a whole lot of money with single family houses.
Yeah. You dropped a little nugget in there, Sean, that I want to unpack, and I don't want it to cause the conversation to go sideways, but I think it's worth revisiting. You said you grew up, your parents essentially lived hand to mouth, but it sounds like a crucial factor for helping you get on the right trajectory was surrounding yourself with the right people. And I think you used the phrase, you got around people with money. You got around people with money.
Yes, it did.
And I think, I mean, that just goes to the principle of proximity is power. Your network is your net worth. These phrases that we hear. What's a little nugget that you could share with our group tonight along these lines of maybe how you penetrated that space, a space that you didn't come from, but you were able to get in and obtain that proximity that helped your trajectory?
Well, eh, let me back up a little bit and tell you the story of how I got there. I
Okay.
got frustrated because I was running about 70 units. I'm back up to about 70 units myself, but I felt like all I was doing is running around running things and I wasn't making any progress. And I kept thinking, I either got to hire somebody else to help me get past this point. I was really at the point where like myself and a property manager and two or three handymen could really just, that's all the farther we could go. I was just stuck and I felt like I couldn't break through that ceiling and get to the other side. So in 2021, I watched one of Grant Cardone's Saturday things that he does, and he was talking about he gave I did at the beginning I didn't really like Grant. I didn't think much of the guy. I thought he was like the guy who rented the house and had the Lamborghinis and the fake models, and I just thought he was showy. I had no idea who he really
Yeah.
was. He just came off as one of those guys I just didn't care for. And he had a deal where, like, if you gave him $1,000, he would give you a free ticket to his class, and he'd give you $1,000 investment in one of his apartment complexes. And I thought, it was a cold, rainy November in Knoxville, and I said to my wife, "Hey, baby, you want to go to Miami for a few days? I'll go to this conference, and we'll enjoy the beach." I had no idea that the conference went like all day, and I thought we'd hit the beach. And I got down there, and the second day, the light bulb came on. And once I understood that the difference between single family and multifamily was in multifamily, I could control the value of the property. Whereas with single family, I had to worry about the comps in the neighborhood. And once I figured that out, it was like it just lit a fire in me. It turned on a light bulb, and that's how I knew, hey, I didn't want to do single families anymore. Like my future was in multifamily.
That's good. That's good. And Sean, just for the sake of anybody's on the newer side of things in our Zoom tonight, what do you mean by you can control the value of the property in the multifamily space?
Yeah, so anybody who's ever done any kind of wholesaling or, buying and selling single family knows that the way you value a house in a neighborhood is you look at the comparables. So the best situation you can have is you have an entire neighborhood of the same house, and if the neighbor sells his house for a certain amount of money and you have the exact same floor plan, but maybe it's a different color, about what your house is worth.
Yeah.
You may have some different fixtures, you may have different landscaping, but if it's essentially the same house, you know what it's worth. And no matter what you do, you could put solid gold fixtures in the whole thing. You're really not going to get any more money than the house next door, right? So everything in commercials based off the net operating income. So if you can find some way to move money to the bottom line in a commercial real estate uh, piece of property, and commercial real estate is valued based upon the net operating income divided by the cap rate. So there's a few things you could change. You don't have a lot of control of the cap rate, but you can change the expenses and you can change the income. So if you can control those two things, you can raise the value of a commercial piece of property. And anything that's 5 units and above for residential is considered commercial multifamily.
Thank you. Hope some of you guys got some help about that. I mean, that is a fundamental difference between single family and multifamily. And Sean, I really like your story because you're bringing in, like, you have time and energy that you're spending in a different industry, IT. You have single family experience. You made the shift to multifamily. So I'd like to hear from you. Looking back on your story, lessons learned, what is some advice that you have for, and let's start big picture here. Let's say somebody has a job, they have a 9 to 5. All right, they want to get into real estate investing. What would be your advice for them if they're going to keep their 9 to 5 job, but to actually like start on a successful track in the real estate investing space?
Yeah. So the first thing you need to do, and you're doing it right here, is you're getting involved in these groups where people work together and help one another. Um, I spent a lot of money on education. I knew right away that I wanted to do this, and I was fortunate that I had my consulting business. I made a healthy income, so I invested quite a bit of money to quickly learn as fast as I could about multifamily. But those of you who can't afford to spend a bunch of money on big programs, you are in the right space. You're surrounding yourself with the right people. You need to get hooked up with somebody who's out in front of you, who's done this before and is ahead of you, not so far ahead of you that they're light years ahead of you. Like Grant and I can't relate to one another because Grant's so far ahead. He still believes if you just find a deal, anybody will show up with money and help you fund it. You got to find somebody who's a little bit ahead of you, and you have to find the right people to work with. When I first went through I joined Grant's program on that weekend that I went. And when I first started going, I just started looking for people to fill the buckets. You needed somebody to do your underwriting. You need a debt person. You need somebody acquisitions. You need somebody to do your investor, and you need somebody to run the property. And I just started looking for people. I knew how to run the property. That's what I was good at. And I started looking at somebody for people who could just fill the other buckets. And got involved in a couple deals where some people kind of took advantage of me, and I lost some money. And I chalk it up to I learned a valuable lesson. And now I don't look for people so much to fill the buckets. I look for people whose morals and ideas and people whose personalities more match mine. I'm a very go get it, intense. Like if I decide I want something, I'll forego sleep or whatever and turn on the beast mode and just go. And then I go through cycles where I work really, really hard to achieve something. And then, I overload myself and I got to take a break from everything, kind of step back. But like right now, I've got 5 or 6 of the biggest deals I'm working on in my life right now. And as soon as hoping to close everything by the end of the year or shortly thereafter. And then I'm just going to kind of push back from the plate a minute and go, okay, let's take a little breath and then go back at it again.
It's good, really good. And we're going to we're going to unpack that topic of partnerships here just in a few minutes, Sean. If you had a chance to do it again, all right, would you start first? Like, would you jump right into multifamily, or do you feel okay?
I would have jumped. I would have been so much farther ahead if I'd done multifamily. And I think you all had Chris and Maricela on here before.
Yes,
Chris and
we did.
Maricela are friends of mine. They actually drove one time to Knoxville to come visit with me, and it took me a little while to wrap my head around everything that goes on in the multifamily. And Chris and Maricela jumped out in front of me at one point in time. I talked to them, and I hadn't done anything. They'd done like 7 deals, and I know that I'd started out in front of them. I started out in front of them with unit count, and then like we discussed net worth, and I was out in front of them. The next thing I know, they like leapfrogged past me and had done like 7 multifamily deals. And I'm like, Chris, how are you doing this, man? I'm struggling out here and I'm spinning my wheels, not getting anywhere. And we just sat down and had a long talk. And then another guy, Mike Bailey from Massive Capital, he helped me quite a bit too, because I'm kind of an introverted kind of guy. I'm not somebody who puts myself out there a whole lot. And I just wasn't meeting the right people. And Mike gave me some advice, and he told me, he said, Sean, you got to play to your strengths. You've got you got your net worth, you got your construction experience on all the, I've fixed and flipped 50 different properties, bought and sold over 100 different properties. And he said, you've got experience, and you don't even know what you can bring to the table because you don't realize your value. And I said, Mike, I never really looked at it like that. And once I started putting myself out there, he said, you just need to tell people that you can be a KP. And I'm like, well, what's a KP? And I didn't even know what he was talking about. So once he sat down and explained it to me, I'm like, yeah, that fits me pretty good. That's what I'm going to do. So based upon his advice, I started going into different groups and saying, hey, if you all need a deal sponsor, I'm your KP, come and talk to me. And people bring me stuff all the time. A lot of stuff they just think they have a deal, and then a few minutes, I don't mean to be Debbie Downer, but sometimes after a few minutes I explain to them, I show them that they don't really have the deal that they think they have. One of the things, because I've run property so good, one of the things I'm really, really good at is I can sniff out in a T12 real quick where people have like hid money or like if something smells funny, I'm not a good acquisitions guy. I'll tell you right now, I'm not good at acquisitions. I can figure out the debt pretty good because I borrowed a lot of money, and I'm really, really good at running a property. And because I've got that experience of running property, I can take a look at a T12 and tell the story. Like every property has a story. And if somebody's not lying, if they actually put, and it's hard with the numbers aren't supposed to lie. I can take a look at a T12 and tell you what kind of game somebody's playing with a T12. So that's what I'm really good at. I'm not good at, I'm learning how to raise money. So trying to get better at that. And then I surround myself with people that are good at finding acquisitions because I don't have time with everything else that got going on to keep up with all the brokers and keep the relationships and stuff like you teach people. But that's a good start for if you don't have a lot of money to invest, and you don't have a lot of experience, and you don't have the balance sheet. If you can get the deal and secure the deal through your relationship with a broker, it's a really good place to start.
That's good, really good. And I think one of the key points in what you just said here, Sean, is going through the exercise to understand what you're good at and what value you bring to the table. And when that is crystal clear, then that's actually extremely powerful, because then you know the value prop that you're bringing to a potential partner, a team that may be able to bring you on board. And so I really like that aspect of your story, is that it sounded like you were helped get really clear on what you bring to the table, and then you were proactive just to fill in the remaining pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah. One of the hardest things when you show up to this is like, where do I fit in?
That's right.
This excites me. I want to do this, but where do I really fit in? Right. That's what you got to figure out.
Excellent. Do you have any advice before we move on to I'd like to jump into partnerships here next, but do you have any advice for people that are still trying to navigate that process and get clear on, hey, what do I bring to the table?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to personality. If you've got a really outgoing type personality and you connect with people well, you're probably going to be a really good acquisitions person. You've got to, there's a dirty little secret when it comes to real estate. A lot of the best deals are traded before they ever go to market, or they'll be on the market for a very short period of time. And you notice the best deals go under contract really, really quickly. And that's because the broker has basically put to somebody a few people that they know, hey, they know property's coming up. They'll go out there and try and convince owners to sell. They'll if a property as an owner's connected them, then they're going to start shopping, see what all the other properties around there are doing. They'll start collecting all the information. They know weeks ahead of time that a property's coming to the market, and you can get a heads up on that if you have a really good relationship with that broker. If you've got that type of personality, you connect with people well, you're going to be a good acquisitions person. If you're an introverted person and you work really, really good with numbers, then you should probably focus on doing underwriting, debt, and probably some insurance, because if you like numbers, you're probably going to be kind of an insurance type geek too. If you're not good at chasing brokers, but you have a good relationship at your country club, and a lot of people have money and you connect well with those people, maybe you need to be a money raiser. There's people in this industry who never have to talk to a property management company, and they just work with investors all the time and help them place their money in places, and work with investor relations and just help raise money. Though we don't have enough of those people.
Outstanding. Thank you, Sean. Really good. Really good. I want to pivot over to partnerships now. And I want to get your advice, because I feel like maybe as someone's a newer-ish investor, they're just really hungry, really eager to get their first deal under the belt or their second deal under the belt. And maybe there's the propensity to rush into a partnership that may not be the best. So what would your advice be to navigate those two dynamics? Yeah, somebody's really hungry to team up and get a deal done, but also how to do that in a wise and diligent way.
So that describes me to a T. When I first got started in this, I wanted to rush into some deals. What it turns into is several false starts. I got hooked up with a lady in this industry who is well known, and she convinced me to do a deal that there was a lot of red flags on, but she talked them away. And I just didn't know much about the lady. She said everything right. Got involved with her. She cost me $10,000. She almost cost me another 120 more $1,000 on the deal. Luckily, I sniffed out enough red flags and pulled the plug before I got hung into a deal that I couldn't get out of. But you just got to be careful. Now I've kind of decided that I would like to do business with people that I feel like if something happened to me, that my other partners in the deal would make sure that my family had coming to them what I had worked for, and I would rather get to know people instead of jumping into something. But my advice to you is know who you're doing business with. These deals that we work on, usually we figure out that the holding time's 5 years, but the deal's longer than that. I mean, these commercial deals can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to close. So you're actually working with somebody very closely for about 5.5 years, and you guys have to have some similarities in like how you think, your morals, same decision. For me, the most important thing is our investor. When we go into a deal, I know if my investor makes money, I'm going to make money. I want to do business with, I want our investors to make money so they'll continue investing with us. And the first deal that I did, the first really big deal that I did with Kevin and Ed, I hit friends and family up and raised about $2.6 million from friends and family. And I don't
Wow.
ever want money to ruin that relationship with either family or friends. It's not worth it to me. So I want to make very, very sure that those people, they make the money that I promised them. I want to under promise and over deliver. So you need to make sure that whoever you're doing business with, if they're all me, and they don't talk about, the business, then that's probably a red flag. That would be the advice that I give you all, is make sure that whoever is doing this, their heart is in the right place. They need to make sure that if you're taking people's money, that you need to make sure you're returning what you're promising. And I see people all the time, they'll get a hold of the underwriting and they'll play with all the numbers to make the deal look as good as possible. And then you look at it and go, you really think this is going to happen? Like, where'd you get all this from? And those people, you can't be so excited that you do a deal and then the whole deal craters your first time, because you're going to be done. There's only so many people in this industry that are doing something. And if you're going to be one of those people that come out of the gate and the next thing you know is you're stick forward in the plane and you nosedive into the dirt, you're probably done. You're going to have a stigma attached to you, and people don't want to do business with that. You need to make very sure that whoever your partner is doing stuff the right way, because you want to win at this.
Really good. And Sean, I want to ask a couple more questions that are along the lines of partnership, and they're kind of similar, but I really want to unpack this because in light of your experience and how valuable and it's a necessity in this space to have strong partnerships. I really want to unpack this topic for newer or less experienced investors. What advice would you have for them in their approach to potential partners that are more experienced in how to properly do that?
Somehow you need to bring value. You can't just, I get inundated with people sending me like offering memorandums all the time and going, I think this is a good deal. What do you think about this? I just don't have time to look at all that. I mean, I'm running, I got, we're closed. I'm closing out of one IT company, but right now I'm running 2 IT companies. I've got 70 units that we've got a couple different syndications that we're running. I built a bunch of apartments with a partner. We just won another LIHTC deal. We're building another 72 units from the ground up, and I'm constantly looking at updates on that. And people, and I'm not, this is going to come across the wrong way, but people that get to a certain level that can sign for a $16 million loan have stuff going on in their lives, and you got to find some way to get their attention with something that's real. If you bring me something and it's not something I'm interested in over and over and over, after a while you start thinking, well, this guy's not serious. He's not putting in the work. There's other people on the other hand that I see that are, they're out there doing whatever they can do, and they're struggling, but they're trying really hard. Um, the truth of the matter is, I think that it takes anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 years to really break into doing really something in multifamily. And that's dependent upon how the market is too. Right now we're in a high interest rate market. We just had a deal. I had 121 units under contract. Well, I still have under contract, but I don't know what's going to happen with it because the interest rate has shifted on me 0.83%, and it's really diminished the returns just by some shifting of the rates. So things could change very, very quickly, but we're not in the best environment right now. Right now, prices on properties have come down, but the interest rates are still high. If the interest rates break lower, it'll be like the best period in time to get into this. So now's the time to be finding people that you can work with, because we are about to go into a really, really good period. And I don't know how long it's going to last. Don't know what's going to happen. Don't know how long it's going to last, and don't know how hard it's going to be to raise money, but it's going to be exciting to see what happens.
I like that. Yeah. I mean, I think a couple of good things that you brought up there, Sean, is, if somebody's more experienced and they have a level of success, it's important to understand that they have a lot going on. They have a lot going on, which is why they are where they are. And to be able to, somebody that's less experienced, be able to get in and get somebody's attention, obviously that's an important ingredient potentially to that person's success. And so to be able to do that and to lead with value, I think is a really extremely good point. I think what about for you specifically, Sean? Like, what does it look like? What is your ideal operating procedure for somebody that can catch your attention with value and navigate through all the different responsibilities that you have going on, where you say, okay, yes, this person might be worth my time entertaining whatever they're bringing to me? What does that look like for you specifically?
I try really hard for anybody who's working at things. I try really hard to be as generous as I can with my time. Sometimes it to the detriment of other stuff that I'm working on. But if somebody, it's hard to find a deal right now, but if somebody can find a deal, the deal that I had in Clarksville, Tennessee, that we're working on 121 units, is one that somebody brought to me and asked me to do. The first time I turned them down, and the guy kept coming back. And finally he was like, "Hey, Sean, you gotta look at this. You're missing out." So I went, actually drove the property. I looked through the numbers. And I'm like, yeah, this looks like a pretty good deal. I went and drove the property and fell in love with it. As soon as I got on the property, I'm like, I really like this property. We looked at 3 properties that day, and this was the property I fell in love with. The cap rate at the time was almost a 7, and it was a brand new property. But they just were persistent, but they knew they had a good deal. Sometimes people think they have a good deal, and I kind of got into this period of time where I was like turning everything down, because I had so much going on, and everything that I was looking at that people thought they had a good deal didn't necessarily have a good deal, because they weren't real sure what a good deal looked like. They did a napkin, but if you dig in deep, these people selling these properties, they're not dumb. They're doing things to be able to boost up the net operating income at the end of this thing. They're front loading a lot of maintenance. If you're owning a property for 5 years, you're trying to do everything you can do to get maintenance issues out of the way in the first 4, and you're cutting your maintenance guy down to part-time, or you're sharing him with another property, or you're getting rid of your leasing it. There's all kinds of tricks and stuff you can do in the last year to build up your net operating income so you can maximize the value of the property. And that's what some of these people are doing. And then the other thing is, I ask people when they bring me stuff, okay, this property, they bring me something that's in trouble, and there's a lot of room to do to increase the value on through forced appreciation. You take a property, you go in there, you fix it, and you raise, because it's on occupancy's low, or there's some units that need capex or something like that. And I always ask them, I'm like, okay, so what's your plan to fix this? Well, we're just going to go in there, we're going to change the management, we're going to run it better. Well, what makes you think you can run it any better than the last people? I mean, those people, they probably went through 2 or 3. I mean, I need to know for sure whatever you think is going on there is what's really going on, because a lot of times there's other issues going on. There's so much maybe it's so much deferred maintenance that that's what's killing the property or something. But you can't just say, hey, I'm going to go in and I'm going to take over the property and I'm going to do better than the last people when you've never really run anything like that. You've got to understand, like, whatever it is you think you're going to do, we need to see some evidence that you can do that, whatever it is you say you can do for the business plan. Because what we're really doing here is we're not just buying property, you know, we're operating a business. We need to make sure that after we buy the property,
Right.
we maintain the property, we get tenants in here, we keep the units full, we keep the units happy, or the tenants happy. You know, there's a lot involved in all this. It's not just we buy a piece of property. And one of the things that kind of disappoints me on a lot of these big mentors, and you know, the big guy included, the first thing he says is just go find a deal and it'll change your life. Well, it can be, you know, it could be that maybe it changed your life and turns it into a nightmare. You know, if you don't do it the right way, it could be bad.
That's right. Um, Thank you for that, Sean. It's really cool because you've done deals with members of the MFC community, which is so
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, and I think a lot of them. I think you know, Peter and I have tried to do something. We've talked several times, and then Ed's one of our investors, or Ed Shamirian is one of my partners. Ed Kempen on here is one of our investors. Ron and I have spent a lot of time together finding stuff. We've got 2 or 3 other people on here that I recognize names for that we've tried to do stuff. And I'm sure someday we probably will. I want to try and help everybody I can, but you know, we want to make sure that we're successful in whatever we do, right?
Definitely, definitely. So could you, based off your experience with Freedom Chasers, with members of the Freedom Chasers community, where you've said, okay, I want to try to make some magic happen. What has been the ingredients that you have seen within the MFC community members where you were like, okay, like I want to try to make something happen? What were the important characteristics that were there that caught your attention? And how can you apply, what would be your advice to the people on the call today on how they can apply those to utilize the MFC community to help them do deals?
Yeah, this group seems to be better prepared. There's a lot of groups out there, you know, well, I've run into people in other groups. They've been told to just go ahead and write an offer off the broker's, you know, broker's offering memorandum and their pro forma on there. And I'm like, no, 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 no. We don't, you know, we don't do that. The folks in the MFC community are better prepared. You know, they understand a lot. I mean, you guys have got some really, really good people on here. You know, like I said, I'm doing a deal with Ed Shamirian and Kevin Kohler. Those guys are really, really good. I think the world of Kevin. Kevin and I have done a lot of deals. We're working together on some joint projects. I think the world of that guy. Jerry Miles does a fantastic job of educating people about loans. Hey, the loans on these things, you guys have to understand the debt on this thing. The debt is your partner. But if you can get a good deal on your loan, it can make or break your business plan. So you guys have some phenomenal people in here. And the cool part is you give it away for free. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I've spent. You could buy into a program that's $30,000, $40,000 and get the same information. And this group right here is providing it for you guys for free. All you got to do is show up. And I know I've been in lots of different programs. I've spent over $250,000 on training, different training programs. And I've been to all the big ones. And I just think of the world of the people that are part of this group. So.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. And for those of you guys that maybe some of the names that Sean mentioned, they're not familiar to, a lot of those, if not, yeah, probably the majority of those are a part of our leadership team here at MFC that I showed a slide on earlier. Amazing people. There's a reason why they're leaders in the community. So Sean, thank you so much for those kind words. I mean, I know that we have great people in this community. I know our leadership team is great, but hearing that from you is just like icing on the cake. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, and I'm not just saying that because I'm here. I obviously wouldn't be doing business with these people if I didn't think a lot of them. So I really mean all that.
Excellent. Comfy, I see your question here. We're gonna, in just a few minutes, man, we're gonna roll into some Q&A. So I would encourage you to, whenever we get to that point, just ask your question directly to Sean. Let's see. Okay, I just got a couple more questions here, Sean, and then we will transition over to Q&A. I want everybody on the call to understand what a KP is, because that's come up a couple of times in the conversation. And then what advice would you be to our audience on how to connect with the KP in the best way?
So a KP stands for key principal. The key principal is the person or persons, doesn't have to be only one, who are sponsoring the deal. And the sponsor of the deal is basically the one that can go to the bank, or the two people. Usually the bank doesn't usually go for more than 2 or 3, but those are the people that have experience and net worth in order to borrow the money to complete your commercial real estate transaction. So say, for instance, you want to go buy, let's pick round numbers, a $10 million project with 80 units in it, and you're going to borrow 75 or 65% or whatever it is. Say it's 75%, then you need to have somebody in this deal that can sign for a $7.5 million loan, and they have to have a net worth and a background of some type that will convince the bank that you have somebody on your team that has the financial wherewithal to handle this business and make sure that the bank basically gets their money back. Even in the case of a non-recourse loan, they're still looking for somebody with experience and a balance sheet meaning their net worth, and their schedule of real estate owned, that shows the bank, hey, you have an experienced operator on your team. And that person is basically the one that's going to be beholden to the bank. Now, on a non-recourse loan, if something happens and it fails, the bank's not going to come after them personally after their assets, but they're probably never going to be able to sign on it for either a Freddie or Fannie or a bank loan again, because now they've got a history of failure. So they're looking for somebody who has a history of transactions, a background in like construction, being a property operator, asset management experience, property management experience, construction, all those kind of things. That's what they're looking for. Somebody who, like, it depends on your business plan. If you're going to go in and you say you're going to renovate a bunch of units and do a bunch of capital expenditure, then they're going to look for somebody who's got experience doing that, or some construction experience. Somebody who can say, hey, I've done this before, I just want to do it again. Will you please give me the money so that I've got a good project here? Just let me do what I do. That's essentially what your key principal is. You're looking for somebody who has the net worth and, can sign on the loan. Now, it used to be they just accepted net worth. Everything, because we've had some deals tank. Now the requirements have gotten much more stringent. You have to have done so many deals of the same size. You have to, maybe have done another Freddie or Fannie deal before. So it's important that you find somebody who's got some experience to be able to get accepted by the bank.
That's a little bit news to me, Sean, as far as the extra stringent requirements for a KP. Is that something that is a recent development as of like in the last year or two, or are we talking about?
It's actually been I would say probably in the last 5 months, they've really cracked in. Yeah, they've really another group that I'm in, we've got a gentleman who used to work for Freddie, and he was very surprised at the new requirements that they've come out with. It's like you had to have done a similar size deal. You had to do so many deals in the past, like 3 years. I think they were looking at like 4 or 5 deals in the past 3 years. There's certain things that they're looking for, and this requirements have gotten a lot more stringent than what they used to be. And I think if the real estate gets better in the future, they may relax it again. That's what he kind of indicated to us, that they would relax it. But right now, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough to get somebody approved.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. And even more of a reason for those on the call who are looking to connect with KPs to do their homework and understand exactly really what they need, and to have the right approach, the proper approach to these kind of KP. And if you're KP in deals, like, you are a very successful high level person, and to be able to approach in such a way where they would be receptive to potentially looking at and jumping on your deals. Very important. Sean, I want to get, we got two more questions really quickly. We'll go to Q&A. And you alluded to this a little bit, but I want to get your feedback on, all right, what is the rest of the year looking like for the real estate market and then rolling into 2025? And what would you like to share with the community members as far as how they could finish this year in a strong way and prep for 2025?
Yeah, right now everything's kind of up in the air. A lot of investors are sitting on their hand waiting to see what's going to happen with the election. You know, uh, obviously I have my own preferences about what happens with the election, but I'm not going to let it, no matter who gets in there, I'm not letting it slow me down. I'm still looking for a deal. I'm still looking for something I can make work. It's harder to get the pieces to kind of fit together the way they did 2 or 3 years ago. It's a lot harder to get a deal put together and get funding and raise money and get it to close. But I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm of the attitude, I don't care who's in there or what's going on. Somewhere out there, there's a deal, and we just need to find it. And I need to like do kick, scream, holler, drag, whatever I got to do to get all that deal and just drag it across the finish line. Whatever I got to do that, that's what I try and do when I get a hold of something. So as far as the outlook, interest rates right now are key. They cannot continue to keep raising interest rates. At some point in time, things have to break. You look at every other foreign country around us, and now they've gone back to stimulating their economies because they're concerned about it going into some type of recession. We eventually are going to have to do that. Also, we're going to have to at least back off the interest rate a little bit. We're seeing, we're watching like the bond market. It's getting pretty volatile. These are all signs that something's getting ready to break. So I think interest rates, I don't think they're going to go down as fast as we all hope they would, but I do think that we're kind of headed that way. The good thing about all this is when interest rates are high, it has an effect on properties value, and the cap rates kind of start creeping up. When cap rates creep up, sellers can't get what they want out of their property. So if you can find some way to do these deals while the prices on everything are low, and it's tough because usually what happens is liquidity starts drying up. But if you can get a hold of these deals when prices are down here and interest rates start going down and cap rates compress, I mean, if you do the math real quick, if you take a property that's doing $1 million a year worth of net operating income and you do some quick math on that, if you just compress cap rates 0.5%, it makes a huge difference in the value of the property. So if you can get a hold of something, and that's going to help your business plan. We're getting into a period of time where if you can pull something down and just hang on to it a little while, things are going to be good. That's the positive. The negative part of it is people are hurting out there now, and you're not going to be able to program your 3% rent increases that everybody automatically puts in their underwriting because we may see some rent softening. So you just need to figure out some way that you can get in these things. They have enough value to where you don't have to like raise the rents that fast. You can find some other way to bring value to it and hang on to them. Make sure you don't go in the negative, program in some additional reserves because you don't know what's going to happen. Hang on to that thing, and what's going to happen when we break out 4 or 5 years from now at the end of this thing, when you are executing your entire business plan, you're going to come out really, really good on the other side of this, especially if we have a little bit of cap rate compression.
Excellent. Thank you. Some Q&A. Let's roll some Q&A. And if you have a question for Mr. Thompson, I encourage y'all to raise your virtual hand. We'll get you unmuted and you can fire your question away. Who would like to go first? Is it Coffee? Kofi? How do you say your name?
It's Kofi.
Kofi, welcome tonight. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for putting this together. Appreciate all the information that you've done. My question's pretty simple. What are 3 factors that would immediately catch your attention on the deal?
Coffee, I'm glad you asked that. So it took me a long time to develop this, but we work a buy box. You got to figure out what your buy box is. So if you know what your buy box is, it doesn't take long for you to figure out whether you've got a good property or not. So one of the things that I look for in our buy box, we look at the area. So we want to find an area that is either like a C plus or a B plus, between a C plus and a B plus area to be in. So you're looking for an area that's, low on crime, low unemployment. You're looking for an area that's continually growing. We love to find areas that have like a 2% year over year growth in population, because you don't want a bunch of apartments coming in an area, or you don't want things to stay stagnant, but the population's going down. You want to constantly kind of stack the deck in your favor on keeping your occupancy up, because what good is it to have an apartment if you can't keep them full, right? So we look for properties. Either we can buy them below market rate for some reason, like, somebody's in trouble and has to sell it below replacement value. We like to buy properties that have, that have been around a little while, that could use some paint or something that we can go do as part of our business plan to push the rents. Because, what we talked about in the beginning, there's only two ways you can really make money on changing the net operating income and increasing the value of the property. And that's either raise the income or control the expenses. And you can only control the expenses so far. There's only a few things you can do to control expenses. So what you really want to do is find some way to raise the income, and you want to raise the income on where the net operating income is. You can come in and do capital expenditures, and you'll hear them talk about these fancy accounting terms where they'll talk about it's a below the line expense. What that means is that's not a reoccurring expense that happens over and over and over again. You spend it one time and it automatically increases your net operating income, but doesn't have an effect on your long-term expenses. It's a one-time expense. If you learn what your buy box is, when you find the right property and you just start ding, 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 checking all the check marks, you're like, I may have a winner here. Then you can go in and do a deep underwriting and find out, yeah, it's indeed, or, somebody's played some games with some numbers here. And yeah, I thought it was really good, but it turns out it doesn't really meet our criteria. We're going to take a pass. Does that answer your question, sir?
It does. It kind of dovetails into your comment about the taking a look at the T12 and then be able to immediately tell if something is amiss.
You got to underwrite. When I first started going to see Grant, he talked about you got to underwrite 300 deals. I'm like, I'm never going to get through 300 deals. This guy's nutty as squirrel turds. I'm not going to, there's no way I'm going to get through 300 deals. I've looked at so many deals now. When I look at something now, he's right. I can start to tell, hey, I think you got something here, or no, these people are playing games. I can look at a T12 really quick now and be able to tell the story on a property. So I only need a little bit of information and I can start to tell you like what's going on. I've surprised people before. Not bragging. It's a skill that you can learn. It's not any kind of magic trick. It's a skill that you can learn. So if you show me the picture, Grant used to bring up pictures of properties all the time, and he would tell you what year the property was built. And he used to think that was like, Grant's got this magic trick. Well, once you come to find out is like everything built in certain years. First of all, you guys need to look sometime. This is super interesting. Apartments are built in cycles. So if you look, apartments are built in cycles. Like right now, no apartments are getting built, right? A bunch of apartments were getting built. Now nothing's getting built. We'll go on like this for 2 or 3 years or a couple years and nothing will get built. Something will change. Interest rates will go down, something. And then you'll just all of a sudden you'll see a bunch of apartment complexes spring up overnight like they did 2 or 3 years ago or last year.
Yep.
I mean, you saw a ton of stuff spring up. And if you look really hard, apartments go into like 3 and 4 year cycle where all of a sudden you're like, boom, all this apartment inventory comes on the market, apartments, flood everywhere. And then they go away for a little while. It's like 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years, there's nothing. And boom, they come out again. And it seems like every time they go through one of these cycles, the architecture changes on them. So that's how Grant can figure out real quick when he looks at something, what year it is, because he's looked at all these deals and they're all the same year and they all look the same. So you start to learn, you learn things, by looking at something, you can tell what year it is. I can tell about an area, something's going on. I can start looking at a T12. If I can get a little bit of history on a property, I can kind of tell you a little bit of the story. Something happened here, something happened there. What happened? You know, and I've told people before, I've looked at T12s and I'm going, something happened in February of last year, something really changed. Look at all these numbers that changed around. And he'll go back and, you know, the people I'm working with, they'll go back and go, oh yeah, they got a new management company. Well, I could tell from the T12 something changed, something's going wrong. So if you or something's going right, you know, some way, somehow something's changed. The T12 will tell you, if you learn how to read it, they'll kind of tell you the past year history of that property.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for your question, and thanks for being here tonight. All right, guys, we got a few more minutes before we wrap up. So who would like to ask? Maybe we have time for one or two more questions. Who'd like to fire one off from Mr. Thompson? Pete?
Hey, Sean, how you doing?
Good, sir. You got me nervous. You know so much already. I don't know what I could help you with, but I'll do my
Oh,
best.
come on now. That's a bunch of nonsense right there. But
No, I mean it. I know you've done a ton.
you know, we talked on the phone the other day, but we don't get to look at each other. So I want to just come on here and talk to you face to face, right?
Well, that's to your benefit. I'm not a pretty guy.
Yeah, listen to you. No, I actually I don't have a question. What I have is I just really appreciate that what you just said about you have to underwrite a ton of deals, and once you do, you can see the picture. I had that experience literally just today with somebody sent me some information on a hard money loan, and I called him back and I said, you need to, he was trying to broker the deal to me, and I called him back. I said, here's the questions you need to ask, and I'm going to tell you, here's the story. I already know what the story is. And I know the story because I've seen it 100, you know, I've literally funded 200 deals. So how many deals have I evaluated? I have no idea, but I have not underwritten 300 multifamily deals. I need to get out there and underwrite more multifamily deals so I can see what you see when you look at that T12. And
Beautiful.
anyway, I literally called the guy that had brought that deal to me that I talked to you about, and he's trying to get it under contract right now. So if I'm going to get more information, if it makes sense, you'll be hearing from me, but I'm not going to call you unless I really think there's something there.
All right. Well, if I can help in any way, I can look at the T12s and, you know, if I can help in any way, let me know. You know, the other thing is, I've worked with people in the past, and this isn't a reflection on what we've talked about, Peter. This is something I just share with everybody. They'll bring me something and they want me to sign a non-disclosure agreement or a non-compete agreement. And I just tell them straight off the bat, I'm like, look, if you can't trust me, like, I'm not going to take somebody's deal. Like you should have that relationship with whoever it is that you're working with. And if you can't trust me to look at something and give you my opinion without worrying me taking the business from you or taking the deal from you, you shouldn't be doing business with me in the first place. You should know who you're doing business with. But yeah, there's a lot of times people bring me stuff and I'll go, yeah, you know, this might be worth pursuing, or here's what's going on. You just need to stay away from it. And I've had people, they don't believe me, and they'll chase something down and waste their time, chase their tail on it. You know, nobody's proven me wrong so far. I'm not certainly not where I'm not so hubris. I don't have so much hubris that I can't be wrong. I've just got a lot of experience. I've done a lot of deals. I've done all kinds of different things, and I can just see sometimes, like you say, Peter, you've done this over and over and over again. You know the pattern. We just see the patterns. It's like we're all humans. We all work in patterns, and we can see the pattern. Peter's seen it.
Yeah.
If you do this enough, you'll see the pattern.
That's right.
Awesome. I appreciate that. I appreciate the offer to help. That's huge.
Anytime.
Yep.
Pete, thank you for being here tonight. Did you have, Mr. Kempen, did you have a question? I saw you quickly unmute before Pete came on.
Yeah, I couldn't, I'm on my phone right now. I couldn't find that little hand icon, but yeah, I mean, I'm working on a deal right now, and it's been kind of lingering, and the banks have been dragging their feet. And I think we're sitting here for like 4 months, but waiting on banks. You know, and I just brought in Jerry Miles back into that deal to try and rescue it, figuring out that maybe they were waiting for interest rates to turn in their favor. Or I was wondering if you had any insights on how you might want to handle that, or sort of a situation.
Say, you cut out for just a second on my side, Ed. Say that one more time. What's going on?
Yeah, basically, this has happened to me personally too. Banks just kind of drag their feet when the interest rate market isn't looking in the right direction. And then all of a sudden the interest rates move in the right direction and everybody's closing deals.
Yes, that's kind of what's going on right now.
Yeah. So any commitment they give is kind of not very useful until they actually choose that the deal looks good to them to close based upon the market flux.
Yeah, I just went through the same thing. We were quoted a soft rate of 5.3%. And then, the deal looked really, really good. And then we started sending in paperwork and we were trying to get everything locked up. And the next thing you know, it shifted 0.83 points. And it went from 5.3 loan to like a 6.12 or something like that. And it just wrecked it. So I feel it, man. I don't know. It's just a crazy time right now to do business. But if you can do business when things are crazy, you can do business when things are good. You just got to keep, I'm the type of guy, I keep running into the wall until I either figure a way through it, over it, under it, around it, or whatever I got to do. I just keep banging my head against the wall. But every time I go through a deal, even if it's unsuccessful, I still learn something. I'm always learning stuff.
Yeah.
No two deals are the same. Every one of them has a unique story. Now they may have a similar pattern, but every one of them has a unique story, and I always learn stuff. The other thing is I got to where I'm at because I constantly ask questions. I'll find somebody else who's done something before me, and I'll just ask them so many questions until I understand what's going on. I mean, when I got involved in my low income housing tax credit deal, I asked that guy 3 times in a row when I was sitting at his desk. I'm like, okay, the guy's name is Mark. And I'm like, so Mark, tell me how this thing works. And he went through it and I'm like, I still don't understand. Tell me again. I'm not afraid to keep making somebody explain something until I understand it. And that might be a topic sometime when we should talk about is like tech, because we could spend an hour just talking about low income housing tax credit deals and how crazy they can get.
Right. Yeah, and we did talk about that, and that's something in my own community they're looking at wanting to do. So
yeah, and I meant even here for the multifamily freedom chasers, we might want to have a night where we just kind of talk light tech deals, because they're very competitive. They're hard to get into, but you don't have to have any of your money. The government puts up all the money to do a ground up apartment complex, and it's a pretty cool deal. It's a pretty lucrative deal. The very first one I got involved in was kind of a fluke. I got involved in it because I had the piece of property they wanted to build on and ended up getting in a partnership where my partner and I are splitting a $5.2 million development fee. And the government's going to pay the debt on the property, and we're going to get to collect the rent, and we pay the property management, the taxes and insurance, and we get to keep everything after that. So, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time on that. It wasn't no magic dust, no nothing like that. I just got lucky.
Outstanding. Edward, thanks for being here tonight, and thanks for your question. We're 2 minutes over time. Sean, how can we express our gratitude to you for spending time with the Freedom Chasers tonight?
Just keep doing what you guys are doing. You guys are awesome. That's why I enjoy spending, trying to help you all. It's like Ron, when I met Ron, he spent a lot of money on a program. I can't remember. He spent about $45,000 for a program. And I didn't feel like they equipped him to be out in the world, trying to do what he's doing. And I'm like, hey man, you gotta get in some better rooms. Like you gotta get connected with some of these folks, because I think they can do a better job teaching you than that program that you spent so much money on. It just concerned me. And I felt like they were teaching him the wrong way, and it was going to cost him some money someday. So, I got him connected with some folks that could help him do better and not charge him an arm and a leg to do that. And then, I hope someday to find folks in this room that we can do business with one another, where we can both make money and take what we've learned and turn it into some long-term wealth.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, I guess just to dovetail on that, Sean, I mean, you said keep doing what we're doing. The lifeblood the lifeblood in the community is from the community members. Our leadership is the backbone, but the lifeblood, the freshness, the vitality comes from each and every freedom chaser in the community taking action and then bringing that action back into the community, sharing it with the group for our mutual inspiration and learning and going on together. So that's my encouragement to everybody here on this call. Take something that you learned, fire it in the Facebook group, fire it in the WhatsApp group, throw it in IG, and inject that lifeblood into the community. Make some noise out there in cyberspace. That's something that is always helpful for the community members because it brings MFC into the radar of new people that could really utilize our resource in this community. And it also, for people that have been around in the MFC community, it helps our encouragement as well. So, Sean, thank you so much. We will do our best to keep doing what we're doing. And yeah, really enjoyed spending the time with you. Thank you everyone else that spent time out of your evening to hang out with the Freedom Chasers and Mr. Sean Thompson.